I am Brian Robb from MassLive.com. He is Jay King from The Athletic, and this is still Poddable Live. We're here, and this podcast is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, the exclusive wagering partner of CLNS Media Network. Video version of this podcast can be found at CLNS YouTube channel. Please subscribe on there so you can catch us here when we go live on Sundays. And you can check us where, Jay, Monday through Friday every week.
Patreon.com/stillpotable. We have a couple different plans where you can either get 3 podcasts a week or 5 podcasts a week, including the free one on Sundays. So we're building something cool. Hopefully every Celtics fan will sign up, subscribe, become a member. We have a chat, an exclusive chat, Celtics chat that gets fired up during games, which is awesome. It's starting to get more and more that it's becoming just an all-day thing, which I love. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's a great place to be. Again, check that out. Patreon.com/stillpotable if you want to check us out Monday through Fridays. And like Jay said, you get the podcast, but you stay for the chat, the community we're building there. The commentary from this whole group within this community has been phenomenal. And so you definitely want to be a part of that. But Jay, in the meantime, we're here on recording this on a Sunday morning after shellacking from the Celtics on the Rockets last night. But guess what? Big story of the night, Jason Tatum. His night was pretty much going to be over anyway, Jay, which makes the ejection probably the most entertaining part of it. But he got his money's worth in this one, it seemed like, getting tossed with, I think 2 minutes into the fourth quarter there after a Celtics 35-point win over Ime Udoka and the Rockets.
Yeah, it was kind of a great ejection from the standpoint of he knew he wasn't going to be playing much longer. He knew the game was over. He knew his ejection wasn't going to matter. And he just wanted to say his piece. I think he clearly felt like he got fouled on the dunk attempt. He felt like he got fouled on an earlier drive. And as he said later, like he just wanted to stand up for himself. So sometimes you just got to let it go. Sometimes you just got to be fired up. I don't think this was anything for anybody to worry about on either end. Like the ref handled it fine. I thought Tatum actually deserved this ejection, whereas the first ejection he had this season, not really. But he wanted that one. He didn't care. And Celtics, they have a lot of techs this year. They're a big technical foul team.
They do. I think you pointed out, like, Porzingis is up near the top of the league, and with it Tatum and who else was Jaylen Brown?
Jalen's up there too. He's in. They're both tied for I think 8th. At least they were when I checked yesterday.
I think the good news about most of those techs, outside of the Tatum ejection against the Sixers, was that none of them have been super costly techs, I feel like, by and large. Like, obviously, that was a bad ejection by Tatum there. This time, this was, if you want to drop a perfect ejection, like a good time to blow off some steam, like this was it last night. Like, Tatum had put together a phenomenal night. He probably didn't even need the game in the fourth quarter to start.
Do you think he just wanted to go hang out with 50 Cent?
I mean, we'll get to that. Like, there were some big names probably waiting for him back there.
I wouldn't be shocked if he was like, yeah, let me just go hang out with 50 tonight.
He did hang out with 50 a bit after the game. I think that was documented. Ice Cube there as well in the building. They were posing for some photos after the game that Tatum posted on his Instagram. But yeah, it was a situation where if you're gonna do it, if you want to blow off some steam, if you think and the way he did it with the officials made sure that, like, yeah, he got his money's worth this time around. He wasn't fooling around. He was kind of making a point out of it. But guess what? It's like you're going to be able to do that on 1 or 2 out of 82 games this year. And if in a 30-point blowout in the fourth quarter, that's probably the time to do it.
Do you think the Celtics complain too much? Do you think they're picking up too many technical fouls this season?
I honestly, I don't. It feels like they're complaining less as a whole compared
There's no
to past
Grant Williams.
years. Right. I mean, that's such a good point.
Grant Williams is gone, and automatically your referee complaining ratio goes down like 75%.
It is. It's just and maybe that's why their relationships feel better, because you don't have the, like, for us, because Grant wasn't teched up much, but he just the constant, badgering officials from him was just nonstop here. So
So,
I mean,
so
Porzingis is
I
like,
brought that up to I talked to Steve Javy recently for a story on The Athletic, and
yep,
I brought up Grant Williams and how much he talked, and I wasn't ever gonna put it in the story. I was like, man, he never stopped talking. He actually said he was like, but Grant had a really good relationship with guys, and
yeah,
he brought up how it was like Sam Cassell when Sam Cassell was playing. Obviously, Sam's now a Celtics assistant coach, but he said Sam would never stop talking. But Sam would do it in a funny way. He would do it in a respectable way that you didn't mind Sam Cassell talking, but he'd never shut up to the refs apparently in his day either.
that's hilarious. I
Yeah.
mean, but it's a situation now where, because it's even if you look at the team and like who's complaining on the team, it's like pretty much three guys like Porzingis, Jalen, and Jason. Porzingis, it feels like he's kind of cooled off after that, record breaking start for a
He
technically
was picking him up every night.
just just left and right. And then yeah, like Jalen and Jason, like I don't know, like it feels like when they've kind of gone off, it's been deserving. Like they after some pretty egregious misses. So I feel like it's not maybe it's just not as much of a storyline this year because they're winning in spite of it, but it just doesn't feel like, beyond just the Grant presence, which is adding on to it, that it's like, becoming a point of emphasis or something that's even taking away from what they're doing on a night in, night out basis at this point. What do you like? What are you seeing on that front?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with any of it. And I think part of it is kind of what Joe Mazzulla has said, which is you want a team that's feisty. You want a team that gets angry sometimes. You want a team that has those emotions. And honestly, with Jalen and Jason, like they used to be not timid, of course, because they've always been super competitive, but they used to be very reserved. And so to me, like when Jalen blocks Jabari Smith and is screaming and yelling and like that's all good to me. Like bring up the level of your teammates, bring up the intensity of everyone around you. That's becoming a better leader. And I'm not saying that getting technical fouls is becoming a better leader, but that level of feistiness from your best players is good. And then the other part of it is other than those three guys, no one even says a word to the refs. Drew Holiday says nothing. Derek White says nothing. Al Horford says nothing. Like, nobody else on the entire roster is even saying a word to the officials. So yeah, I don't have a problem with the technicals at all. They haven't come in situations really where they've been costly to the Celtics. It hasn't felt like Tatum has been complaining and not getting back on defense. That's the stuff that bothers you. And they haven't really had that. So yeah, I'm they've had a lot of technical fouls, but I don't think this is an issue. I don't think it's something that people should be concerned about or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's I did find it pretty hilarious last night. There were Joe Mazzulla had to use his challenge in the second quarter on a out of bounds call, which he was just completely disgusted
Yeah, he was.
that it got wrong. And then almost immediately after that, Jay, another terrible out of bounds call that Al Horford like just lost his shit again. And the Celtics obviously didn't challenge that one because they wanted to have a challenge for the rest of the night, and it was somewhat competitive of a game at that point. But like you said, like that, those were the exceptions to the rule. It's like when they're getting miffed like that, it's because it's something as egregious as those missed calls were last night. But beyond that, like there are a lot of angels on this team when it comes to officials outside of those three. I don't know, like Joe's gotten his money's worth in a couple times, but generally I feel like he um stays out of the fray there.
Yeah, he doesn't I mean, he's constantly having a communication with the officials like any coach does,
Yeah.
but he's not ripping them apart on a regular basis, at least visibly. Maybe he does it in classic
That's right.
it would be classic Joe to just like mutter under his breath some super hateful stuff, I feel like, which would be funny. But no, he doesn't pick up text. He doesn't do a lot of that stuff. He just subliminally tells them to go fuck themselves with a piece of with a reference to a town scene. That's all.
That's true. All right, let's take a quick break here to hear from our sponsor, FanDuel.
NFL season is wrapping up, And there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Now, the app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, we're back here at Still Poddable. Make sure you check us out at patreon.com/stillpoddable to get ad-free Celtics podcast every day, Monday through Friday, whether it's breaking down games, whether it's we have mailbags, we have a voicemail line where people can call in to get with questions about the Celtics, to get life advice. We've been covering some of that too. So it's a catch-all podcast for everyone here, Jay.
It is. And we're gonna keep growing too, which is cool. Like already we've had some big improvements, whether it's like the voicemail line, which is hilarious, people asking us questions on there. Somebody asked us how to invite someone out on a date, which I don't think it was any of our wheelhouses, honestly. We're not like the biggest game havers on our podcast, I would say. Maybe Packard has a little bit of game, I'm not really sure, but
we're past our primes, me and you.
Exactly. But yeah, every single day, there's no better Celtics podcast in this world.
All right, so let's move on here from last night. What we thought was going to be the main storyline of the night, Ime Udoka's return to Boston with the Rockets. Clearly had a lot to say before the game. I thought it was interesting after the game. He really didn't even stick around on the court to greet guys, even though I'm sure he was doing that plenty after the game. Just got a little hug from Pritchard and then just walked off the floor there. But anything that stuck out to you, Jay, in terms of his comments, either before or after that game, and honestly too, like what some of the Celtics players kind of said about the situation?
I was not surprised, but it's telling that it was kind of a non-story at this point. And it's telling because it shows how comfortable everyone is with Joe Mazzulla. It shows that the wound, which was open for parts of last year, is no longer that. And the players, they still have a lot of respect for Ime Udoka. Jason Tatum has said time after time, like, how much he loves Ime, how good a relationship they have. None of the players have made any secret of the fact that they have a lot of respect for Udoka and how he turned them around. But they're in good hands now too. And if Joe hadn't established himself and if Joe hadn't proven himself to those guys, then I feel like Ime coming back and coaching against the Celtics would have been a bigger story. But they believe in Joe, and they believe in how Joe is teaching them. They believe in the changes that Joe has made to the culture in his second season in charge, which is really the first time he's been able to put his stamp on everything. He's changed the way the coaching staff works. He's changed the way practices go. He's changed the daily schedule of how guys work out. He's put his own imprint on things in a way that he was never able to do last season because of all the circumstances around him taking over. And I just feel like they're comfortable with Joe. They like Joe. They respect Joe a lot too. And they'll always have, appreciation for Udoka and the way he took a team that really was bad for his first half season in charge, turned them into a finals participant and really set them on their way. They'll always appreciate that. But now they're comfortable with Joe. Everything is just kind of back where it should be from a standpoint of team dynamics, where they're not yearning for Ime anymore. They're really, happy with the way things are going right now under Mazzulla.
Yeah, I think you laid it out perfectly there. It's only been like a year and a half where they officially parted ways with him, but it feels like much longer than that at this point, just based on where they are as a team. Like if they were struggling, and or if Joe was, they're struggling with Joe's system, like that'd be one thing, but like that's clearly not the case. It's the exact opposite where everything is rolling, and there's honestly been bigger changes in between, like Marcus Smart's gone, like they made Grant Williams is gone. They made all these moves, this past summer that kind of supersedes now, it seems like, Ime's departure. So it's clear that both sides are moving on. It seems, I think it's easier for the players to let go too, because they see Ime has landed on his feet. Like he's got his new job. Like this is, for as tough as it was for how things ended up here, like it's not like this didn't end Ime's career. So, and a lot of those guys wanted him to get a second chance, and so he's gotten it, and he's doing well with it so far. So from that standpoint, it seemed like there were the tone from the players was much less like frustrated, like it was when initially this stuff came out last year. Now it's more just like, yep, we're good, he's good, like let's move on.
Yeah, and it was such a shock last year, and it was even a shock. Like when was it? November that Ime was ready to take a job with the Nets. It was 4 weeks after he got suspended, 5 weeks after he got suspended, whatever. It was so soon, and I think the Celtics players at that time, some of them were thinking, if we suspended him for a year, why is he able to just go coach another team? And why specifically is he able to go coach another team that's our rival? And obviously, Ime didn't end up getting the Nets job. He, for whatever reason, that fell apart after it seemed to be extremely close. And that the emotions were kind of able to be pushed aside. But it was all just so fresh last year. And like you said, now they're rolling. Joe Mazzulla has really figured out how to incorporate Kristaps Porzingis, how to incorporate Drew Holiday, how to make changes to everything so that they're in a great place, as good a place as any team in the NBA right now. So it's funny how much Joe wanted to change, and he wanted to change it during his first season, but he really couldn't. And then now you're seeing him run the team the way he wants to. And I remember the Kristaps Porzingis press conference, which was, when was that? June? Early
June.
July?
Earlier in June, yeah.
That was really Joe's first time talking to the media after the season. And I remember him saying, yeah, we need to change the culture. We wanted to just get back to the finals. We were searching for that one thing rather than just being process oriented. I was like, he did not want to be finals oriented at all last year, but Ime was finals oriented. Ime was the one saying, we need to do this, and that better because we lost to the Warriors and that showed our weaknesses. It was all based on the finals. From the time they've ended the finals, Ime set the tone. We are going to learn from this. We're going to keep this with us, yada, yada, yada. And Joe, that's not how Joe works. And I think it probably bothered him that players were thinking like that the team was thinking like that and he thought they skipped steps because of it. And he's probably right. And there's no one way to do it, but it was clear from that press conference that he was ready to make changes and that he was ready to really mold the team the way he wanted to do it from the start. But because of circumstances, because of how quick he needed to take the job, because of how much respect guys had for Udoka, he just couldn't make the changes because people wouldn't have bought in. Like the players, they believed in what they did under Ime. They trusted what they did under Ime. If a new coach came in and told them we're going to do things very differently, they would not have been happy about that. So he was kind of constrained in that first season, and now you're seeing him flourish really with his own vision and doing things on a day-to-day basis just the way that he wants.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point from just the balancing act that Mazzulla had to do in that role when he was, again, trying to put his, kind of keep things together with the limited prep time he had, and while knowing that a lot of these players were like thinking that Ime should have probably been there in the first place, didn't understand why a full year suspension was justified, which obviously turned into a firing straight up. But now with that luggage gone, if you will, like with just Joe being able to spread his wings a little bit, and with the benefit of perspective and time and the ability to prepare and figure out what he wants to do, and what this team needs to do with the personnel they have. Now it's like you don't have to deal with that part of it, and that stuff clearly weighed on that team last year to varying degrees. And now it's been, I think, just a breath of fresh air around the organization just to not have, that situation. The Ime situation just seems like fully in the rearview mirror now. And now with him coming and going last night, now they can say, okay, that's even out of the way now too.
Yeah, it was almost a non-story. And it wasn't a total non-story, but it was not anything emotional for the players. It didn't seem like it was emotional for really anyone on that roster. And so that's where you want it if you're the Celtics. You don't want guys thinking about Ime Udoka. You don't want guys thinking about what could have been. You want guys happy with the way things are. And that's how it seems to be.
All right, Jay, we're going to get to the game itself in a second. But first, we're going to hear from our sponsor here, Factor.
Started on your resolutions with Factor, so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door with over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan plus veggie, and more. Plus, over 55 weekly add-ons. You'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your New Year resolutions. Factor is cheaper than takeout and much better tasting food. So if you just want that occasional meal, or if you want to plan your entire week, you can go to factormeals.com/winning50 and use code winning50 to get 50% off. That's code winning50 at factormeals.com/winning50 to get 50% off. It's an absolute steal. That is factormeals.com/winning50 with promo code winning50 and you get 50% off.
All right, we're back here at Still Poddable. Make sure you check us out every day and sign up at patreon.com/stillpoddable. Jay, we did have a basketball game last night. We have to get to that at this point. It was a competitive game for a
quarter and a half.
Yeah, a quarter and a half. But I don't know. I mean, to me, the story of the night, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown's shot making was pretty incredible there. And clearly they led the way for a team that shot 51% from 3-point range against one of the best 3-point defenses in the NBA, period. But Houston was coming off the back-to-back. They were down a couple bodies, and they clearly couldn't do anything to stop just like the level of shot making that those guys were doing and setting up for their teammates.
Yeah, and when those guys make shots, honestly, what are you supposed to do? Because you have to try to take away the drive. They're both very tall, very athletic. They can create separation basically whenever they want. The step back three Jaylen Brown hit, how are you supposed to defend that? I'm not sure you can without fouling. Like there's if he's gonna make that, you just gotta tip your cap. And that's kind of the hidden secret of the last couple of years is that those guys really haven't shot 3-pointers that well. But when they do, and we've seen Tatum get hot over this last stretch of games, couple weeks maybe, then that turns them into just an absolute force. And I actually thought the first half of last night's game, Celtics didn't really play great basketball. They just hit a ton of shots. And they ended up going into halftime with an 11-point lead. Tatum was fantastic. Jaylen was super efficient. And then the defense came around to start the third quarter. They started blocking everything. Kristaps Porzingis, who allowed Alperen Sengun to have a big first half, started really impacting his shots at the rim, turning him away. And the Celtics from that point on were able to just create a ton of separation. But it was a shot making at first that got them that lead.
100%. Like the Rockets, I thought they were flat out like frisky in those first like 18 minutes. Like especially coming out the back. Like Sengun was doing all sorts of crafty moves down low. Like he's 21. He looks like he's got like a 32-year-old's game. It's really fun to watch, but he was giving Porzingis problems, and they were playing hard out there. But like you said, I think the Celtics shot making, once it got going, I think became demoralizing because it's like, all right, what can we do in this spot? And then once that train got rolling, the fatigue probably caught up with the Rockets coming off a back-to-back in Detroit, and then things escalated very quickly there to the point where
It was quick.
It was aggressive. And I mean, everyone got in there. Like Porzingis was hitting threes. Derek White kind of broke out of his JJ Redick funk. And another big night, Payton Pritchard, 19 points off the bench, got going too there. So it's when all those pieces are rolling against this offense right now, there's little answers. And I think that's we've talked about it a lot, Jay, just how good this offense has been without, stellar 3-point shooting from Brown and Tatum. And at least
Porzingis, really.
Yeah, right. Porzingis is still, he's still at like 32% right now in the season, which is like wild. But now it's a factor where it's like Tatum is coming around that front. Brown's efficiency has been phenomenal for most of last month, and it's like, look out, especially at TD Garden.
And there has been a lot of dissatisfaction at the amount of pull-up threes that Jason Tatum takes, which I kind of understand because of the percentages that he's shot them on, not just this year, but last year too. It's been close to 30% on those attempts, like just really not a super efficient shot. But to me, that's the shot that opens up the game for everything else. And teams have to respect that shot, and they have to know that Tatum can pull up in transition. He can pull up coming over a screen. He can pull up in an ISO situation. And so you have to respect that. And so he takes enough that guys need to guard him no matter what. And he's capable of it. And when he goes on flurries where he hits 3 of those in a row or 3 of those in 4 minutes, then they're going to create separation. And it was eye-opening to me because before the Milwaukee game, which was an utter disaster, total disaster from the start, Celtics got just absolutely drilled to the point that Joe Mazzulla had to take out the starters. But before that game, Adrian Griffin was talking about the challenge of guarding the Celtics, and he said it's kind of like the Warriors. Like you know the run is coming. You know they're gonna hit a bunch of threes in a row. You just have to be able to get through that. And it kind of opened up my eyes that he brought up the Warriors comparison, because that's the most dominant team of the last decade. That's the team that put the fear of God into you, because you could be in a close game, you could be doing everything right, and then all of a sudden Steph hits a 3, Clay hits a 3, Steph hits another one, and you're like, man, we're down 11. Where'd that come from? And the Celtics, because of how many threes they can shoot and because of how many threes they take when they do hit some in a row, they can really put a run on you. So I was surprised he brought up the Warriors when describing the Celtics, but when you think about it, the firepower they have, especially when Tatum and Brown are hitting, they can really just hit you with a run that just kind of takes you back.
Yeah, up to right now, they're number 1 in the NBA in 3-point shooting rate. 47% of their attempts, Jay, from 3, and that 3-point percentage is up to 8th in the NBA now, 37.8% last night, and that's still with a couple of their high volume guys, whether it's Porzingis shooting below average on the year. So that's a scary number for opponents, to your point, and to Adrian Griffin's point, it's just like, okay, the shooting is coming from everywhere, and we don't have good answers anyway. Like last night, I feel like they tried to do a lot of doubling of Tatum early, and then he just kept making the right reads. And then once they kind of went away from that, or he just got his shots anyway, his efficiency and Brown's efficiency, it's just like one of those guys. It's like they're gonna make tough shots, but if they're making like all their shots on top of it, then it's just like, forget it here. What else stood out to you about just the game itself and just I guess the runaway part of the second and third quarter last night?
When the Celtics defense is really going, the rim protection is just crazy. Like Kristaps is in there turning guys away. Jalen had 2 just crazy blocks on Jabari Smith, including the one where he pinned his shot off the glass, the other one where he just stood him up in the post. And like they've got guards who can block a shot. They've got wings who can block a shot. They've got Kristaps who can block anybody. It's like every single person in their starting five can protect the rim in their own ways. And so I think when they really get going, it's that rim protection is just overwhelming because it's not just coming from one guy, from two guys, it's coming from the entire roster. And that's kind of what stands out to me. The other piece was Peyton Pritchard's alley-oop off the glass. That was poetic justice. And I'm not saying that he did it because Ime Udoka was on the other sideline. That is not what I'm saying. However, it was hilarious that he did it against Ime Udoka because if you can remember that game in Portland, was that 2 years ago? It must have been 2 years ago. It was Ime's only season. Pritchard was playing in front of his hometown. He wasn't playing many minutes at that time and got in the last 6-7 minutes of a blowout win and just totally took the game over. And it got to the point where I think Dennis Schroeder was like laying down on the sideline, like making a total scene out of it. They kept feeding Pritchard. He scored like 16, 17, 18 points in the last 5 or 6 minutes of that game. And the Celtics were loving it. And it was into the final minute and they were up 30, however many. And they just kept feeding Pritchard. It got to the point where Ime in his post-game press conference just said, you know, I didn't think we were respecting the game. I talked to Chauncey about it afterward, yada, yada, yada. So he didn't love that Peyton Pritchard was going wild in garbage time.
Well, he called him off at one point too, right? Like he didn't let him take a shot when the shot clock was still on.
I think I forget exactly what happened, but yeah, he was not thrilled with Pritchard. And then Pritchard came to his post-game press conference like, what do you want me to do? He was like, I guess we're free balling, but we were out there. Do you want me to just not play basketball? That was basically his response. That's not a direct quote, but essentially. And so it's so funny that, you know, it's a 31-point game against Ime's Rockets with 2 minutes, 40 seconds left. And Peyton Pritchard throws the alley-oop off the backboard in what's effectively garbage time. It cracked me up because you know Ime's on the sideline like, damn it, Peyton.
The disrespect.
you did that for me too. Now you're doing it against me. I tried to teach you out of this. Oh man, I thought that was just so funny. And again, like, I'm not saying there's any animosity between those two guys. I don't think there is. Guys, to my knowledge, has a lot of respect for Ime Udoka.
Well, he talked about after the game too, his respect for him, and greeted him after the game, and that you could actually see them say something to each other, like joking wise, after the end of the game. So I wonder if there was a jab in there by either side about the alley-oop play that you just referenced. But
it was so funny,
but
it called me back to that day, and it was like Peyton Pritchard. It was a terrible season for him from the standpoint of playing time. He was basically out of the rotation, not playing a lot. Finally, he has this huge game, and Ime's like, "You're not respecting the game, kid. Why are you out there trying to score buckets?"
And that's why, and like in this situation, I'm very much like Team Pritchard in terms of that sequence that you described from 2 years ago. Because it's like he's had such not a tough road with the Celtics, but like he's had a lot of obstacles to playing in Boston, and that. It started kind of that second year with Ime where they made a bunch of trades, but Pritchard had shown during his rookie year that like he could be a reliable, bench contributor. But he was buried that season. Ime went in other directions, and the front office opened direction, the Dennis Schroeder directions, Josh Richardson directions, some other random, Romeo Langford, whatever. But then ultimately things opened up for Pritchard when they traded all those guys away. But then, Pritchard had to go through it again last year too. And now this year he's finally established in his role. They realized they probably made mistakes bringing in guys that not blocked him, but just like Pritchard could give you comparable production. And now, like you said, now it comes full circle with that moment last night. And he scored, 7 of 10 for the field tonight. He scored double digits in points in 3 of his last 4 games. He's been playing really well. And as the season kind of turns here, as they finalize things on the roster, like more and more games like that just look like Peyton Pritchard's going to be, important part of this team, probably important part of this playoff rotation in a couple months if he keeps up this standard.
Yeah, and he's just kept grinding away through a lot. Like, he had a really, really promising rookie season. And like you said, they just blocked him from playing time with their personnel moves over the next 2 years. He wanted to get traded.
You're right. It's just
and was very open about it, even when they were winning a lot of games. And he just wanted a chance to play. And now he's getting that. He's getting a chance to have the ball in his hands more often. He hardly ever commits turnovers. His assist to turnover ratios, top 10 in the league. And he's really thriving in this role. And the team is playing great with him on the court, which is, what you really want from bench guys. It's not about the points per game. It's not about even the assist to turnover ratio, but that keys into winning too. It's about, can the team thrive with you on the court? And he's been a great compliment so far to the best players on the Celtics roster.
Yeah, and the entire bench last night, Hauser had a rough shooting night, but Pritchard was great. Horford was, I think, very strong defensively per usual in his limited minutes off the bench. And yeah, just again, like the Houston, that's not before the game that the Celtics were favored by, I think it was like 16. And I was like, wow, that's like a really big number against like a 500 Houston team. But then you just forget, just nights like this where it's like the talent is so overwhelming. Like,
and back-to-backs matter too.
And back-to-backs, exactly. They know back-to-backs matter. And we've seen that a lot this week, whether it was with the Celtics in Milwaukee or Houston last night. But it's once the Celtics got going after what was a competitive first quarter, it was clearly over by the fourth, and Joe Mazzulla was able to give plenty of extra rest to the starters there. No one played over 30 minutes. And again, the schedule still is pretty busy for the next couple of weeks. So putting games like this in the holster where you're not playing 35, 40 minutes for the starters, that stuff, will add up here and potentially lead to better results for this team as they get through this month.
Oh, no doubt.
All right, we got time for a little junk here, maybe. I'm going to start with last night. I think it was the second quarter, Jay. They had the portrait situation. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, where Luke Cornett drew a portrait of a teammate. And I believe my esteemed colleague, friend of the show, Suichi Terada, posted it on Twitter if you haven't checked it out yet, or an X. And it was of Porzingis winking. And it may have been the worst drawing I've ever seen in my life. The entire crowd did not have any idea it was Porzingis, but the fact that he had the wink there, that was the catch there.
I'll tell you what, when they put it side by side,
you defending Luke Cornett here?
Side, yeah. As a man who has no artistic ability, I have to stick up for those who can't really draw things.
I mean, Luke, keep your day job. That's what I'll say for that. But no, it's I thought that was pretty entertaining there. Rockets wise, Sengun, I just love Sengun's game. Like his just the awkward one-handed floaters from like 15 feet that find a way to go in, and you're just watching this, and it looks again like a 35-year-old just like trying to like use his tricks to stay in the league. But no, this is his third NBA season here, so it's like he's developing into a hell of a player. He's a hell of like fun to watch. And I don't know, I think he's like maybe the best building block that team has right now. Is that like, where would you kind of put him?
I think he's easily the best building block that team has. I think they need to run their offense through him. They need to build everything around him. He's an ecosystem by himself. Like he can help other guys get going. He's just a great talent. And obviously not the greatest defender in the world, but he's getting much better at that end. And yeah, I love Sengun's game.
Elsewhere right now, I touched on this a little earlier, but I think like how pissed off the Celtics were about those challenge, like the out of bounds calls, like that were missed. Like Joe Mazzulla literally going halfway out of the court, just going his arms to the referee, has been like, what the hell? Like, why you're making me use my challenge here in the second quarter? Something he desperately does not want to do. But it was not a good night for the officials, I think, by and large, last night. But the out of bounds calls were pretty egregious between that one and the out one. But the reactions from the Celtics on the bench for both of them were highly comical.
They were funny.
The Pritchard alley-oop you already brought up. We don't need to really rehash that again. That was gold. And yeah, I would say this. One more thing, Jay. 7 o'clock start. We've had a few of them lately at TD Garden. I hope they were full to capacity at 7 o'clock. People getting through traffic.
This needs to be the movement.
Listen, it's been a long time.
I also love that I'm such an idiot that everyone texts me that it's a 7 o'clock game because they know I'll forget. I got like 3 texts yesterday saying that it was a 7 o'clock game, just a reminder to me so that I wouldn't show up late. So thank you to all the other Celtics writers, Celtics PR people who reached out and let me know.
Players, coaches. And yeah, so that's what I have on the junk front. Do you have anything from your snow travels?
Oh yeah, I was stuck in Milwaukee. I missed last night's game. I have no nuggets. We did go to a Milwaukee versus Cleveland State basketball game while I was snowed in, which was a good time. Turned out to be a pretty good game.
That
little Horizon League basketball. There were like 10 people, including me and Adam Amelsbach. So yeah, it was rough, but I finally made it back, and I'll be back at the next home game, baby.
All right. Well, we'll have a lot coming up this week here on Still Poddable. 3-game week, some big games, including the Nuggets coming to town on Friday night. So make sure you're joining us on the Patreon for daily podcasts from myself, from Jay King, from Sam Jam Packard. Make patreon.com/stillpoddable. We're really building a fun community there, and we'd love to have you guys join us on it for some of the best Celtics analysis and content you'll find anywhere. Want to thank again CLNS for hosting us here on the live stream. Make sure you subscribe here to check us out for the free show on every Monday. Shout out to our sponsor FanDuel and Factor. And that's it. We'll be back with you guys after Monday night's game against the Raptors here on Still Poddable.